The world has witnessed a monumental shift in Syria as the rebel coalition that overthrew the brutal Assad regime begins to take the first steps toward forming a transitional government. This marks the end of a dynasty that ruled the nation for over 50 years. The Assad family's reign, built on repression and fear, has finally come to a close, and a new chapter begins for Syria and its people. Islamist fighters secured the capital city, Damascus, following a sweeping military campaign that lasted less than 2 weeks. This rapid advance left many stunned as rebel forces overcame major cities and government strongholds with unprecedented speed. Yesterday, Damascus fell, signaling the complete collapse of Bashar al-Assad's control over the country. In the heart of the city, residents poured into the streets to celebrate. Crowds gathered in the main square, chanting freedom and waving flags of the opposition. The jubilation marked the culmination of years of struggle against a regime that crushed dissent and silenced opposition. Syrian civil defense teams have already been deployed to areas formerly under government control, including the infamous Sednaya prison. Reports suggest that many prisoners may still be trapped in underground cells. The United Nations Security Council has called an emergency meeting to address the situation in Syria. The collapse of the Assad regime has not only reshaped the political landscape of the Middle East, but also raised urgent questions about the nation's future stability. The border regions tell another significant story. Long lines of vehicles can be seen on the Syrian borders with Lebanon and Turkey as thousands of Syrian refugees attempt to return to their homeland. Lebanon, which hosted nearly 1.5 million Syrian refugees, almost a quarter of its total population, has seen a surge of people crossing back into Syria. Similar scenes are unfolding on the Turkish-Syrian border, highlighting the massive movement of people sparked by this historic change. In Moscow, the Syrian opposition flag was raised at the Syrian embassy, signaling a symbolic victory for the rebel forces. According to Russian state media, the ousted president Bashar al-Assad and his family have been granted asylum in Russia. However, the Kremlin has declined to confirm this officially. A spokesperson remarked that the turn of events had surprised the entire world, including Russia itself. International reactions have been swift and varied. In the United States, President Biden described the fall of the Assad regime as a fundamental act of justice following decades of repression. However, he also acknowledged the challenges ahead, calling it a moment of both hope and uncertainty. Western nations have expressed cautious optimism, emphasizing the importance of Syria's transitional leadership, adhering to democratic principles and human rights. The rebel advance that toppled the regime was nothing short of astonishing. After capturing Aleppo last week and Homs over the weekend, they reached Damascus with remarkable speed. In some areas, government forces offered no resistance, abandoning their posts as the rebels advanced. This marked the end of a regime notorious for its authoritarian grip. The Assads crushed dissent with brutal efficiency, leaving behind a legacy of mass arrests, torture, and violence against their own people. The symbolic turning point came when rebels stormed Sednaya prison, a site infamous for housing political prisoners and dissidents. They freed those who had languished there under inhumane conditions, an act that resonated deeply with the Syrian people. Meanwhile, in the heart of Damascus, a statue of Hafez al-Assad, Bashar's father, was torn down, symbolizing the end of a half-century of rule by the Assad family. Rebel leader Abu Muhammad al-Julani, head of the Islamist group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, has emerged as a central figure in this transition. Despite his controversial past, al-Julani has sought to downplay links to extremist ideologies, emphasizing his vision of building a Syria that serves all its citizens. His visit to the historic Umayyad Mosque in Damascus was a moment of profound symbolism, signaling the rebels' intent to present themselves as legitimate stewards of Syria's future. The international community faces a delicate challenge. While Western leaders have cautiously welcomed statements from rebel leaders about inclusivity and reconciliation, they remain wary. The focus will be on actions rather than words as Syria navigates a complex and uncertain path forward. The fall of the Assad regime represents a seismic shift not only for Syria, but also for its key allies, Russia and Iran. For years, both nations provided unwavering support to Assad, ensuring his survival through military and economic aid. Now, his ouster deals a significant blow to their influence in the region. Despite the celebrations, Syria remains a fractured nation. Various factions with differing ideologies and goals control different parts of the country. The path to peace is far from clear. Syrians now face the enormous task of rebuilding their country, grappling with the scars of war, and finding a way to coexist in a land deeply divided by years of conflict. As the nation embarks on this journey, the world watches closely. The coming days and weeks will be critical in determining whether Syria can emerge from this period of upheaval as a stable and unified state, or whether it will descend into further chaos. Stay tuned for more updates as this story develops. For the latest breaking news and in-depth analysis, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and join us as we continue to bring you comprehensive coverage of global events.